You are listening to Two Heels and a Face Wrestling Podcast, a podcast where we believe wrestling is a buffet and there's something there for everyone. Make sure you're following us on all social media such as Twitter, Instagram, Facebook under Two Heels and a Face. That's number 2 Heels and a Face. Make sure you check out our website, twoheelsandaface.com.
Era, Two Heels and a Face.
Thanks for listening to the episode of Two Heels and a Face Wrestling Podcast. On today's episode, we are kind of going to just explain ourselves a little bit. We did put out a message about 2025 being the last year of Two Heels and a Face. We mentioned it briefly on the year-end stream of 2024, and we never really got to dive into that subject, I think, fully. And that's okay, because we had a really fun 2024 live stream. A bunch of people texted us to come on. We had Coda and Alfonso on at different times. And shit just went haywire. Things got out of control. We watched Alfonso's cash in, but we never kind of got a chance to explain ourselves and our bucket list and this final year. Right, Chris?
Yeah, looking now, we're at 2025 and looking at a year ahead of us in which, we do have a bucket list. We've done this for quite some time, I would say. And then, just looking into this year and making sure that we have done all we wanted to do with this pod, and ultimately have a good time,
Yeah. I think a lot has happened since we last did the live stream. We made the announcement of this being our final year. And I think we're just kind of ready to put this project to bed as much as we loved it, you and I. And we can kind of see the light at the end of the tunnel, right? Of us kind of like sputtering a little bit. And, we're like, I don't want to go out with us regretting like that we should have done it sooner or anything like that. Like, that's kind of where we're at with it. We're like, we love doing this, but it's getting to be a lot for other stuff that we're juggling in our lives. And I just don't want it to be one of those hobbies where you're like, we just kind of stop doing it and never come to a resolution. So that's why we're kind of like setting an end date for it. And I think we're both happy with that. And also we released the Shy 25 as well. So a lot has happened.
It was requested for us to do a Shy 25 before we, sunset the project here. So we will definitely be doing a Shy 25 at the end of 2025.
That's maybe the last thing we do is a Shy 20, as a one more Shy 25. I also thought about, I toyed around with the idea of just making Two Heels and a Face a blog, but once again, that takes a lot of time too, just to write. And honestly, it's probably less time to sit down and talk. So yeah, that'll always be we could keep the domain going if we want, but maybe we just could just go for the vibes, for some looking back at some stories and things like that. But yeah, we requested to do another Shy 25. We've had a lot of people reach out to us about the final year and just kind of say really all kind gestures. We really haven't talked to Trent yet. I know Trent was kind of heartbroken because he loves coming on the podcast. We're going to probably try and get him that appearance record before the end of the year.
Uh-huh.
Maybe we should add that to the bucket list. But yeah, we're going to go over our bucket list, and we just appreciate everyone who reached out and just said what a difference we made in the community. That's all Chris and I have ever tried to do, is to just positively impact people. And the Shy 25 was actually very well received too. Podding with Ego has recorded about it. That episode, I think, comes out Friday. We're recording this Wednesday. So by the time you hear this, both of them might be out, our episode and their episode. Mm-hmm. But that received pretty good feedback as well from a lot of people. I think most people agree with number one. And I won't say how that is. I would say go to twoheelsandface.com and read it. But most people agree with number one. Chris, how did you feel like the list shook out?
I think definitely there's some, and we saw that, a lot of people replied and sent DMs and things like that with different opinions. I think one of the best comments was like, I don't agree with all, but I agree with most.
Yeah,
I think so. I mean, I was happy with it. I think definitely it's cool to see, right? Like if we look back at the previous years at the Shy 25, we took a first stab at it. Um, and now ending the year with, you know, your number one, and I believe 4 or 5, being at the top of freelance, is pretty cool to see because we've seen their journey throughout. There's a couple people that have gone up and down, but remained in the Shy 25, which is pretty cool. And then quick shout out to Potting with Ego, right? Some of the goals that he set for, not necessarily his people, but just people he's associated with, is that he wants them to get out of the Midwest scene.
yeah.
So,
There's a
it's
few
for sure like
people.
you made a staple. Yeah, they made their staple here in the Chicagoland area. And if it's something that they want, definitely go out and explore other areas because you made your impact here.
There's a few people on that list. Yeah, I think like you're seeing the graphic right now if you're watching on YouTube. I think Missa Kid is on that list. I think she has the ability to travel outside of the Midwest. She's done so much here. Like I said, she was involved on that article. She was involved in 31 matches that only were like local. And I know she could
Mhm.
wrestles in like other Midwestern states, but 31 in the Chicagoland area. That's a lot of wrestling. She's um capable 100% of like traveling outside the Midwest. Like Bangin' Matthews is the example that Ego brought up, right? On potting with
Yeah.
Ego. Um, they 100% should be like GCW regulars and touring like the US with them. And like and be like staples for them. I know that they're featured on a lot of shows, but like they could probably even climb the ranks in that sense. Um, I think Trevor Outlaw is another great one too. Like Trevor, that like you mentioned, Chris, like Trevor Outlaw kind of got bumped back on the list a little bit. And I don't necessarily think Trevor Outlaw had a bad year, but it's just like the people in
Blame it on the
front of
clown.
him. Yeah, we could blame it on the clown. I don't think the people in front of him, just think the people in front of him like had more room to grow and they grew a little
Yeah.
bit more. And like and Trevor, I think, has done. I know he could probably like you could argue like he could win titles here, sure. I don't know if he necessarily needs titles because he's over without them and he's prominent on a card without them. But you could argue Trevor could go to other places in the Midwest because he's main evented freelance before, and you could argue that he could grow in other promotions. And like, there's just some people on this list. There's some people on this that could go up in 2025. Like I expect Blair Onyx to be very high on the list in 2025. I expect Maggie Lee to I think Maggie Lee could be one next year. Honestly, I think she could because I think
Okay.
a lot of people are going to strap a rocket to her as they should. CSW already has, but I think like AAW, her doing well there is what's next, and other stuff. So there's it's cool looking at the list, and like you said, you see people kind of shuffle up and down. That's why I put like the last rank in there. And yeah, it's just seeing people grow in different ways is really cool to see. So that's that. And this is like the third or fourth list we've done. So you could look back at other ones, right? And kind of see, where everyone landed all time.
Um, not a good surprise. I think it was expected, but I'm glad to see him on the Shy 25 is Salomon Tupu, right? I think
Mm-hmm.
we started seeing him more often, and I think so. I got to see him this year. I saw him at AAW and Ego Pro. Um, and both times, like, well, not both times, but the shows that I've seen him, like, just confident dude. I think I seen him years before, but just trying to kind of. I think Ego also alluded to like just you can't just be another Samoan. So
Yeah.
just embracing that different approach to his character was pretty cool to see him in the Shy 25.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. Chris, do you think now that we've kind of like announced this is going to be our final year and it's kind of sunk in with some people, do you have like any initial regrets about that? Just because like people messaged us and reached out,
Hmm.
and the Shy 25 again got really good traction, which is kind of why we do it. I think the wrestlers really like seeing their, reading about, we're always generous, right? In our opinion. I think wrestlers like seeing that. We're not like saying this person sucked or dirt sheeting anyone, but like now that kind of like we have like an initial buzz again. So like there is a little bit of a
Hmm.
buzz because we've announced and then we released a Shy 25 and like DMs are active and things like that. Do you have any like regrets of our announcement? I guess is what I'm asking.
I mean, if we take it back to the last episode where we announced that, right? It's like we're going into 2025 as this is our last year, and we want to make sure we do all the things that we wanted to do that, whether it has been on the back burner or just things that we haven't gotten to because of other things. Like, let's just go into 2025 and try to, have fun, enjoy what we do. Um, and who knows what could happen, right? I'm not saying that, oh, we might not stop the podcast, but also it's just like one of those things. It's like I'm open to it, but I want to go into 2025 thinking that we're sunsetting Two Heels and a Face podcast, and we're gonna just kind of have fun and do the things that we've been wanting to do that for whatever reason we haven't gotten to. So that's the
Yeah.
mentality of going into 2025 like that. If something else happens and podcast keeps going, I'm not opposed to it. But for now, having that in mind also kind of, to a certain degree, it takes some pressure off in a weird way.
It does. Yeah, I think that's what you're kind of getting at. You're kind of like, fuck it, let's
Hmm.
just do whatever because we don't need to live up to like topping ourselves anymore. This is it, you know?
Right. I mean, I think we've definitely done. We've had fun doing what we've been doing, and just as the Shy 25, I think our intent is just to put a spotlight on the wrestlers that we see month to month, right? Um,
Yeah.
and I think that was the idea behind Two Heels and a Face. At least when I jumped on, right, we talked and we said, like, let's just cover indie wrestling. There's 20,000 other podcasts or million of podcasts over there talking about WWE and what's going on TV, opinions and such. But just highlighting our indies here in the Chicagoland area, that was our goal. And we've been just trying to look for different ways to do that.
Yeah.
The podcast is one. We started doing buffet line episodes. We did the snack size episodes. We did live recordings. Ad warrior, um, and articles and things like that. So that's staying true to our intent behind starting this podcast.
Yeah. And I think like that's what I think about when I think of like how we started. I know there was a damn pandemic in the middle of it, but I think we started with a lot more gusto and motivation. And now these last couple of years, we've still enjoyed it, but we've been getting pretty comfortable, I think. And like also you once I think, and I know I'm not saying this as like I don't want to keep bringing this up as like I don't want you to think we can't do the podcast because like you like family stuff is getting in the way, but like you are growing. It is a
Hmm.
fact. It is a fact. You're growing your family, and that
100%.
has to be like
Hmm.
taken into consideration. You know, like
Family
we
has
can't.
grown. I am not growing the family. Let's get that straight. Family is not growing anymore. It's
it's
grown to its full potential.
it's not growing in numbers, but it's growing in size and demand.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's
No,
growing in
I think
size and
I
demand.
mean, would you say that that pandemic had a little bit to do with that? Cuz I think we talked about it before. Like we wanted to record, and well, we recorded in person up until pandemic.
Right.
Every episode was in person.
Yeah, I think it like I think the pandemic made everyone a little bit more comfortable in a sense, and I think it kind of opened people's eyes to just like I don't know, like it kind of gave everyone a little bit of just a culture shock, and it got everyone kind of
Mhm.
comfortable doing what we're doing, which is like recording over computer, and that's the norm now. Like for even
Yeah.
just I haven't done any like I work you and I both work in marketing. I work for like a agency. I haven't done any even like on-site client meetings And since we've returned to the pandemic, because they're just not a thing anymore, because everyone's okay with doing like these big meetings over calls, you know? And maybe that's just because like my agency is a little bit lax. But like some of my client,
Mhm.
I've had a client through the pandemic and never really demanded we meet in person. And I think it just honestly it changed the culture. So I think we started doing only digital interviews. We stopped doing like going to do those interviews like maybe like at the LSA like before a freelance show, and we kind of got a little bit comfortable too. And I just don't know if we'll ever return to that level of enthusiasm or like pure effort that we kind of had with like let's say those first
Yeah.
4 or 5 years. But I'm okay with that. Like we're comfortable with that,
Mhm.
you know. We're comfortable with where the podcast is and
No,
like
I would say this though. I would like to at least do one more episode, whether that's at a venue. I don't know how would that would work out, but like whether that's LSA, because there's not a whole lot of space at the Logan Square. I think we recorded there with Eye Candy and Pat Monix.
yeah.
Um, but at if it's the Berwyn Eagles Club, in a dingy area in the upstairs, we did that with Davey Vega and Fitchett.
Hmm.
Um, but I would like to see if we can pull that off and do one recording in a venue somewhere.
Are you
Now,
gonna are you gonna put
this
that on
would
the bucket
require
list?
for both of us to be at the same show.
That's another thing too, is that we just don't have that consistency of going to as many shows. Once again, we're comfortable with that. I'm not
Mhm.
saying it as a complaint. I'm just saying that our cadence, our schedule, our lives have changed. And that's kind of a big reason why we're just like, you know what, this has been really fun, but let's put it to an end. And we're comfortable
That
with kind
doesn't mean that we're not gonna keep going to wrestling shows.
No, I agree. And that's what I've said too, that people have reached out to us. I was like,
Mhm.
don't worry, we're still going to go to as many shows as we can at a comfortable, whatever amount we're comfortable with. Um, and there's definitely other promotions we need to show love to other than like say like freelance. We go to the most shows, but we need to show love in other areas. So I think we're due there, but we will. Um, so yeah, I don't know. I don't know if you want to put that on. Maybe it's a good segue into our bucket list. I don't know if you want to put one more at venue recording or anything like that, but I'll let you be the decider of that.
I think for sure and you've encouraged me to do this and logistics and all the things we haven't been able to, but definitely doing a Spanish episode, one or two, um, with one of the luchadors, which I mean, Arrow Boy's still open to. That's one that's just kind of been lingering there. Um, but there's definitely other like local luchadors that we can kind of get into and hear their story. One of them that I would like to talk to is Atomico Senior. So that's that's out there. But yeah, the Spanish episodes is something that we've talked about in the past, and I definitely want to do that
Yeah,
before the end of the year.
yeah, that's on our bucket list. That could be like at a venue or a training ground or something like that. So yeah,
Mhm.
that's on there. We want to finish with at least 300 episodes because we're at like two. This might be like 272 or 273,
273, 274. I gotta make sure.
273,
But yeah.
274. So we've totaled it out. We got to do 2.33 per month. So to be safe, probably around three ish per month. So maybe there's like a couple show reviews thrown in there plus interviews. Um, but yeah, that's the cadence we got to get on because it would be epic if our last and final stream we just streamed for like 3 fucking hours and it was episode 300 and just got super wasted in a responsible sense. Wouldn't
I'm
that
down
be
with that.
the most epic way to go out?
That would be great. I'm down with it.
So 300 episodes, episodes in Spanish, or at least like one. I mean, I'm okay with many, but at least one episode in
Mhm.
Spanish. We want to move to Blue Sky for this year, which I'm working on, and kind of like deactivate and ditch Twitter. I'm just kind of done with for reasons we don't get it won't get into. I just don't want to support that platform at the moment for different reasons. But we want to move to Blue Sky, try that out for this year. I might like message everyone and just like, hey, we're gonna be over here and on Instagram, just so you know. So you might get a DM from me. And we want to do more wrestling trivia, correct? Have Trent come back on for that.
And this
And
title.
defend his title. And there's a couple other things I have written down here. I've always had the idea to Kirby and I have talked about this on an episode. I think it might have been the first episode he was on this podcast. Whenever something's crazy or is going wrong in your life, wrestling has been an escape for people. And the phrase he used is, "But now I'm here," which means like no matter what's going on in your life, all the madness, all the crazy, the drama, etc. When you go to the wrestling show, you can forget about that and let that all melt away for a few hours. And that's kind of what that statement means with that. But now I'm here. So I've always wanted to kind of put that on a shirt and sell that shirt somehow. I think we still have a pro wrestling tee store. And then don't just donate the money and not necessarily recoup any of it. We could donate the money to Kirby because that was kind of like that phrase was kind of his idea, but it's kind of for that purpose, that sense. Like maybe I can get like my therapist to sponsor it or something like that. Maybe put a sponsor on the sleeve or something like that. But that's kind of the idea behind that. I mean, we know graphic designers, so we'd have to reach out and get like a design made for sure. What do you think?
No, I'm with it. I definitely like that, and it's right on, right? Like I think over the years we talked to so many people and they shared their story, and it's like, but but now I'm here. Like whether that's a wrestler or whether that's a fan or a friend, at the end of the day, it's like we kind of all bonded over this thing that's called wrestling, and we've known people that have had dealt with other personal stuff, and then at the end of the day, it's like, hey, when I come to a show, I kind of forget about it all and just have a good time. So I think, at least from what I've experienced, and I know there's plenty of experiences out there that people have with wrestling, but for me and the people that I interacted with, has been very pleasant. I could also be going through some stuff, home,
Mm-hmm.
work, whatever, but at the end of the day, if once I go into that building, um, it might not even be the wrestling itself. It's just the community that's built around it and the supportiveness of that community
Great
that,
call.
people greet you with a hug, or they might not know who you are, but they'll see you enough times that you just get a head nod, right? It's like, hey, I know you're here with me for the same reason. We're gonna enjoy this. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm done with it.
Cool. Okay. Once again, we'll work on that. I think the first thing starts with just like getting some kind of design together. And then, yeah, maybe figuring out where the money goes. Either I originally thought like some kind of mental health foundation, but honestly, Kirby, if it gets off the ground and Kirby still needs help,
Yeah,
because like that phrase was kind of like
absolutely.
that I heard that phrase from him. So maybe I'll like try and figure something out with him. We'll see. This is just about doing it. This is just about doing shit this year. Just doing shit we wanted to do. Doesn't have to be perfectly executed or pretty or well organized, even. Let's just get shit done that we always wanted to try creatively. Um, Next on the list is the best of Isaiah Velasquez. I think I was writing an article last year. It was like an article that had like a quote from Coda Hernandez in it, and it was to promote Coda versus Isaiah, I think, at a show.
Hmm.
And I don't know why. While I was writing that, I kind of had the idea of putting in some of like Isaiah's best matches at freelance. And then like I was like, no, you know what? Like that deserves its own article. That deserves like time to put into that article. And I think we could really do something cool, like dedicated to him. And I think he's just kind of, you could do it for a lot of people in freelance, but I think like Isaiah was arguably is the face of that, or like was the face of that. He's like one of the top people that come to mind when you think of that brand. And he's kind of in this role, this mentor trainer role, and a little bit step back from the spotlight, but still involved in like some storylines. It just kind of feels like he needs something dedicated to him. I don't know what to do. Like, maybe I just want to repay him for all the cool shit and matches he's done for us. But that idea just kind of came to me. And sometimes when an idea comes to me about like writing something for the site, I just kind of want to get it out. So I want to
Mhm.
like bring people in on this. I want to like get James's opinion on stuff. I want to get Matt Nix's opinion on stuff, and just maybe highlight like 5 of his best matches, link to them in some way, and like really go into detail on them. Um, so yeah, that's kind of what the article idea I have in my head. What do you think about that?
I love that idea, and I think it's right on. You're right about him being a, someone that you think about when you think about freelance. Um, I would actually like, as you're talking and describing your idea for this article, I'm like, I would like to hear his thoughts around the matches that you selected or that you came up with,
Shit,
right? Where
that's a
was
great
his mind
idea.
at that moment? Like, did he think it was going to be a match that would kind of, live in freelance history? Or, I mean, it doesn't have to be all in freelance, but I think most of his work is there. But just, I want to know his opinion on those matches and what they mean to him. So
Well,
Isaiah, the invite's out there.
yeah, that's actually a great idea because I think we could. I see it now. I think we could do the homework and research. We've seen some of these matches, so sometimes it's about jogging the memory,
Hmm.
but there's some we probably haven't seen. Um, get that homework done, get that research done, have him on, talk to him, ask him those questions. Then we could just like clip it up. So when you're reading the article, it could be like match, clip of Isaiah's talking, details about it, neck repeat, match, da 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 da. So that's kind of that I'm just kind of envisioning that. Um, and yeah, who better to hear it from than him fucking self? That's actually a good idea. I agree with that. I love
And
it.
then I think the last thing that we have here
This
in our
is
bucket
your
list as of
idea.
today, it's something I've been, and I talked to you about this before. I just don't know how doable it was. Again, logistics, schedules, booking, everything outside of the things that I normally do for this pod. But it's just to kind of like, we've talked about the promotions that we've have covered, right? We've talked to freelance, we talked to freelance wrestling, freelance underground, uh, warrior wrestling, Gali, Warrior, when it went by the name of Warrior Wrestling. There was Cello Pro, and I don't know how many promoters we can all
R.I.P.
get in one virtual call or in a room. If this is an in-person one, I don't know, but as many as we could. I mean, and I know it gets there's other things that play into it. So Ego, right? He's running Ego Pro, which I think he'll just we'll have fun with that if that ever comes to fruition. But it's just an idea that's out there, right? We'll see if that could. I think that's the hardest challenge in this bucket list, to just bring
So hard. It's
all
gonna be
these
hard.
indie wrestling minds together and have a conversation about wrestling.
I think I love how ambitious this idea is. I told you I think we're the only podcast that can honestly do it. Um, and maybe I could see it being representatives of each. I don't know if every
Yeah,
promoter would be in, but like a representative of each, if that makes sense.
I think, yeah, absolutely. Like, I don't know if you know I'm just to throw an example out there. Danny Daniels from AEW. I don't know if he's going to join, the pod. He's been a guest before, but we
Yeah, it was a
definitely
great
talked to
episode
Trent
with
a
him.
lot.
We
So,
definitely talked to Trent
Trent
a
can be
lot.
a
Yeah.
representative for AAW. Um, from Zello. I don't know. I mean, it's again, Zello's been on pause, hold, non-existent for the last couple of years, but they had a really good run here. We had a lot of fun going to their shows. We still talk to D-Ray. We still talk to Matt, right? Um, is that like for Warrior Wrestling? Would Steve come on, or would somebody that represents the Warrior brand? I don't
Yeah.
know. But again, this is an ambitious task at hand. So hopefully we're able to pull it off, and just kind of bring the wrestling familia together, and share. a beer or a cup of water, etc.
Yeah, we've labeled that the meaning of the five families. That's a Godfather reference. So hopefully no one has a gun taped up in the bathroom stall when that happens. Um, cool. So that's our bucket list. We'll release a graphic, but those are all the things we want to do in this final year. Thanks again for supporting us, everyone out there. Please continue to do so. And this is the final year, so you'll never have a chance to do it again. I think after this year, if we're true on our word, which I think we're going to be true on our word. So we appreciate everyone's support. So yeah, just give that extra click, that extra like, that extra listen. It's all appreciated. Thank you. Chris, Monday Night Raw. What a debut.
We don't cover WWE, right?
We don't cover
here we are.
WWE, Chris. We gotta. What a badass. Chris, do you want to start or should I start?
I'll just start by saying I had not been excited about watching Monday Night Raw in a very, very long time.
Yep.
Years. Last Monday, I left work early so I can sit my ass down and watch Raw, thinking it was gonna happen last week. It didn't happen, but the promo was out there. Luchador next week. I was like, all right, so it's next week. Same thing. Left work early on Monday. Made sure I, was at home to watch Raw. Actually, Alan, you know Alan, he
Yeah.
came over. We watched it together, and it was a debut of Penta. Um, Pentagon Jr. as we first met him, and then as you know, he went by Penta El Cero M. He went by Pentagon. He went by all these different variations of El Cero Miedo, but ultimately he shows up to Raw as Penta. That's it.
Are you okay
Um,
with that name?
I think that's the best approach they could have done. Right? They were not
Okay.
gonna get the rights to Pentagon Junior. Um, Penta El Cero M was always kind of weird,
It was
right?
always a
I
little
understood
awkward.
it, but
Yeah, it was
yeah,
awkward.
nobody's gonna call him Penta El Cero M. And as we know, WWE is about short names, right? So
Yeah.
Penta was the way to go. So it was good to see that. Um, it was a little bit unreal, right? Like just kind of seeing him come through you know, that curtain and having the Raw logo in the background. Um, for a minute, like it's like, am I watching Raw or am I watching a video game?
Yeah.
Because if there's something, a little piece of feedback there was like the entrance music was a little generic in my opinion. It was like a creator
And
wrestler, so it just kind of built into that whole thing.
yeah.
But
So this yeah.
but ultimately, dude, it was super exciting to see him. His family being front row. Um,
Yep.
I don't think it was his best match, right? Obviously, like I think there's nerves, there's anxiety, and there's excitement, all played into that.
Mhm.
So I don't think it was his best match. There were a few things that you're like, kind of like turn your head a little bit, but
There was a
overall,
few
I
things.
think
Yeah.
I think it was great. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I gotta, props to Chad Gable for selling that Mexican destroyer so well.
Dude, that was the best part of the match. He like just went
Yeah.
stiff.
I watched that like 3 times, like just the clip over and over. I'm like, how did he do that? But it was so cool. It made it
Right on the head.
just 10 times better. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think there was like it was like a that's why I texted you. I was like that was a 9.8 out of 10 debut because there was like a couple awkward things, but it's like I think when the light came on him in the entranceway, he was like super
Mhm.
jazzed up, and it just didn't feel like because the crowd just doesn't know who he is yet. So it felt like he exploded.
I
I'm
think
like,
the crowd was at a 60% knowing who he was.
oh, you thought it
But you
was
can
even
definitely feel
60?
that. I think it was like a 60-55.
Because it
Like
was a
that was
San
halfway
Jose
there, but
crowd, or no? That
it was a
helped.
San Jose crowd.
I know. Like, do you
Hmm.
think that helped? Obviously, I'm assuming like San Jose, Southern California, probably large Hispanic population. I would assume, and like
Yeah.
close to Mexico. Um, do you think that tipped it? Because I would have guessed like under 50% knew who he was just because it was a WWE heavy crowd.
You know what? You might be right. Because he did he went for the Cero Miedo a couple times, and crowd was not getting it. Like
I
you could
know.
not, you weren't getting the feed of the crowd, like you would normally, expect the entire crowd to say the Cero Miedo.
Like the front row people, there was people front row with like Penta mask, and
Hmm.
like they knew that, like they got it because they were there for that debut,
Yeah.
and obviously they knew who he was. But I think like at the start, the crowd just didn't know, and then they started wrestling. Gable was an amazing opponent, like you said, amazing seller. There was that really awkward like bottom rope bounce into a leg drop move. I've
Yeah.
never seen him do that before. Have you seen him do that before?
He's done that before,
Oh, okay.
executed better. Like that one felt like
Yeah.
did he miss a rope and he was trying to improvise? But no, he's done that move before. It didn't land well.
Yeah. And then I really think the crowd turned on that destroyer. It turned the whole crowd. I'm talking about like the people
Hmm.
who just the WWE faithful who have never watched an indie in their life that were in that crowd. Like, I think, and I loved how he was getting all his shit in, like backstabber, the headstand, like kind of like the Ultimate Dragon, where and then
Hmm.
he like brings his leg down, like all the arm breaker, all the shit he did on the indies was awesome. That like shout out to Gable, shout out to WWE for like letting him do all his stuff.
Yo, that front flip to the outside, Gable did not catch that
Dude,
man.
he did not catch. I texted my wife's cousins because they're big WWE fans. I was like, he was definitely not caught
Mm,
on that dive. Oh my
yeah,
god.
the base god was not there to catch Penta.
No, we needed the base god in that moment. Um, but I think I loved it. I think like the crowd got behind him at the end, and the destroyer was
Mhm,
was the swinging factor of that match. It was an amazing. That was like a 10. That was like a 12 out of 10 destroyer. That was perfect, picture perfect. And then his promo at the end was just enough English, and then I love that he went to Spanish because his voice sounds so fucking like raspy and cool when
mhm.
he's just like speaking Spanish and he's like talking shit about like your mother in Spanish, not your mother, not my mother, but just everyone's mother.
Yeah.
So like you got a little bit of that from him too. It was just like he played all the hits. It was like this is who this guy is. He was showcased really well. There he is on the screen. I have I gotta hang up that 8x10. I bought a frame for that 8x10. Remember, I was like,
Yeah,
I'm not a
yeah.
huge merch person. And then at Warrior, I finally bought an 8x10 and I was like, I'm gonna have him sign it. I'm just never a mark for that stuff. And people who are, that's
Mhm.
great. If you want signed stuff, that's cool. Do your thing. And the one time I buy an 8x10, he like doesn't come out to sign at Warrior because he was like doing something backstage. So I just have an unsigned 8x10 that I got to hang up. But now I feel like is like the perfect time to do it because it's the Penta new era.
Yeah, it's the new era. And I mean, yeah, like the fact that he had mic time, I was a little shocked initially once they went up there with a mic to the ring to ask for his reaction. I'm like, holy shit, like is he gonna be
Yeah.
like my respect for you, or is he gonna, because that was his famous line at AEW.
Dude, that
Um,
was.
so but hey, he's like he said a few words and they allowed him to speak in Spanish, so that was cool. But yeah, overall, I mean, I think um they also introduced him like when he was coming out as like the worst best kept secret because that
Yeah.
morning the WWE shop was all branded with Penta Cero Miedo stuff or Penta stuff.
Yeah.
One of the things that I did notice is that he used his regular gloves, his regular now branded gloves. Obviously now when he was in the Indies, but now the branded gloves have the Lucha Brothers logo in the palm.
Mm. And that was the
So
gloves he had with the Lucha Brothers logo, or no?
yep, yep,
Okay.
yep. He used those, and the definitely the Cero Miedo sign was out there when he took the picture with Triple H. He had the gloves on, said Lucha
Yep.
Brothers. So that's to everyone that's making speculations about what could happen. Like we're all expecting Phoenix. to or Ray Phoenix to show up at some point.
Yeah,
Maybe not sometime soon, but maybe sooner rather than later, because now AEW took out all Ray Phoenix merch off of their shop.
I love that. I think that'd be so cool. And you don't need to do that right away, right? You can introduce it when you need
Yeah.
to because he's got so much buzz
Hmm.
right now. So let him ride. And then if you need to introduce that or they need to do a tag run in the future, you can do that. And that's not like me pooping on Phoenix. Penta has always been Penta has always had that more mysterious and
But the
edge
look is
to
so
him.
unique.
And the look is so unique. And like I feel like that's kind of what Phoenix has always had against him is he is the stereotypical luchador style underdog and like that's his gimmick is the fight from behind guy. And that's a lot of babyface luchadors. And
Hmm.
that was Rey Mysterio at first. So Penta has always had that. No, this guy's psychotic and he'll break your shoulder. And that's always been a little bit different than most luchadors. So I think that's why he's like a little bit more attractive. But I would love to see a Lucha Bros tag belt run. Oh my God. Please sign me up for that in WWE. If it's done well, right?
I mean, against DIY,
AEW did it first,
I don't know
dude.
if that would ever happen.
In some capacity. I don't
Right.
know if those two teams specifically, but like, that would be like an AEW match.
Yeah, we definitely seen Champa and Penta go at it.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I love how AEW was like releasing all Penta's old videos, which re-releasing, which they should. But it was just like it kind of brought a
Hmm.
smile to my face seeing all that, just like all those good times. The one versus Sammy where Sammy like painted his face. Um, and then it was the Ciampa one right after that where we sat front
Hmm.
row.
Those good old days.
Good old days.
We
But
were we were there every month.
9.8 out of 10 debut. Um,
Absolutely.
maybe I'll watch some more Raw. I don't know if I can sit through the combination of commercial followed by match promo followed by backstage interview followed by one of the two wrestlers entering followed by commercial before match. I don't know if I can do that. It's just not enough wrestling for me. I just want wrestling. And I understand that
No,
WWE
I'm
is
with
sports
you.
entertainment, but I
Mhm.
get it. Like I just want. I think the indies have programmed us, Chris, to just be like action, like a little bit of talking, back to
Hey, and,
action.
and they have reprogrammed us. A lot of the times we don't even get intermissions anymore. So
Yeah, I know we're just like feed us stuff. But
so
WWE got to sit there through those commercials. It's whatever. Okay, shows coming
we
up.
watch
Do
it
you
on
want to run through?
Tuesday. You can fast forward.
Yeah, there you go. Do we want to talk about the shows coming up really quick and then take it home? We've already gone
Yeah,
longer than we
shows coming
planned.
up. Absolutely, yes. So freelance wrestling has no ring time for the week. That is happening on January 24th at the LSA. Doors open at 7. Bell is at 8. I believe this is a sold out show already. So you
Yep,
might have to tune in if you don't have a ticket to IWTV.
back to sellouts.
But they're actually putting, yeah, let's talk a little bit about that show because there's a few matches here that have been announced, such as Devon Monroe against Blair Onyx, Sasha McKenzie versus Laney Luck, Darren Corbin versus Regan Lydell, and then we have a scramble and very interesting scramble. We're talking about Isaias. He makes an appearance here in the scramble, um, alongside of I Candy Elliott, Trent Wrigley, Trevor Outlaw. Escalera is back. I don't think I have seen him in a card in a few months. I could be wrong, but
Yep.
correct me if I'm wrong there, Charlie.
No, you're right.
And Alfredo Albitter. I don't know who he is. I is the first time I hear his name.
Yeah, he was on some shows in the back half of 2024. I believe he follows us too on all
Okay.
platforms. So shout out Alfredo. But yeah, he's free. He's an academy guy, so he's kind of coming up. Um, but yeah, Devon Monroe, Blair Onyx, two friends, good friends going at it. That should be sort of good synergy there. Um, Yeah, Coda versus Saban. That is there's going to be a ton of good synergy there. Yeah, I mean, there's no Shaza versus Laney, 100%. They just had, like, the loyal fan base is showing out because I don't think they've even announced everything yet. Oh, Alfonso versus Danhausen is on this show too, so that's going to be entertaining. So
Oh,
yeah,
yes.
it's going to be great. This is going
I'm
to
sure
be
I
a
had
good
missed
one.
that one. Hmm.
Yeah, and then
And
Guardians
then,
of the Academy,
mhm,
right?
yeah, that is on that's next month on the 22nd, February 22nd at the LSA. This is a show put together by the Freelance Academy for the Freelance Academy. So this is one where I would like to see if I have that date available for sure. I would like to go and support those guys and gals. This is also not a late night show. Doors open at 2:30 and the bell is at 3.
Do
I don't think there's
you?
any matches been announced there, but I
Yeah,
think
I
it's
don't think
just
there's.
it's going to be all freelance students.
It's going to be like mostly students, and I think maybe Alfonso might be on it, but I know he like helps train a little bit. Um, so
Mhm.
yeah, this is going to be a really cool one, and a lot of people are going to get their opportunity to shine. So that's awesome. And I mean, it's just continuing to make their own stars. Honestly, you got to invest in the youth. So love that for them.
Then we look over at AAW. They have a show coming up at the end of the month, January 31st, at the Berwyn Eagles Club. This is the Chi-Town Rumble. There's an actual Rumble happening. I don't know how many entrants are in the Rumble, but they've announced a few.
Okay.
They announced Joe Alonso, Davey Vega, Seco, and Robert Eagle Anthony as
Mm.
entrants to this Rumble so far. So
I hope his knees are okay.
the fact say that again.
I think Ego might have a little knee issue going on, but maybe it'll be better by then. But yeah, him and Joe kind of feels like they have a little unfinished
Something
business
going on there.
still. Yeah,
Hmm.
so that's cool.
You have Maggie Lee versus Sierra, Matt Riddle versus Ren Jones for the big gold belt,
Hell yeah.
Beef versus Stallion, um, and then the Rumble. I think that's what's been announced so far.
Okay. Yep. So this is January 31st at the Berwyn Eagles Club. Doors at 6:45. There's a live taping before that too. So you're getting a ton of wrestling actually. Um, we just said we love wrestling in action. You're going to get a ton at this show. A Rumble too. Who doesn't love a Rumble in Rumble season? Because I know that the WWE Rumble
Mhm.
is happening. I think Feb 1. So yeah, it's Rumble season, baby. Some of my fondest memories are renting old VHS tapes and watching Royal Rumbles with friends. And this is the best time of the year for wrestling.
And I mean, you're not going up to Indy for the Rumble, are you, Charlie?
I've thought about it.
Same.
All right.
I thought about it, but then I realized that my family's growing and I can't make irresponsible decisions.
I've never been to a Rumble. I need to go to Rumble. So I actually, honestly, I'm kind of thinking about it. I'll shoot you if I'm for sure. I'll still shoot you a text, even if you need to tell me no.
Okay, okay, I appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but before we wrap up, also we talked a little bit about that, potential shirt, right? That potentially benefit will go to Kirby. Kirby, the voice. If you follow this podcast, he's been on. He's shared his story. Has multiple stories, and I'm sure if we ever bring him back on, he'll have another dozen stories to share.
That man's full of
Um,
stories.
but yeah, as you know, he went through a heart transplant. Thankfully, everything worked out, and he was doing great. He's been doing great. He's been an announcer for a couple of freelance shows already. Back to the grind. And unfortunately, he had his home caught fire. So now he's dealing with that. And just as support, right? There's a GoFundMe going around, but also Freelance is doing a raffle. I'll put the graphic up now if you're watching on YouTube. All proceeds go to Kirby's family. Uh, $5 raffle tickets for an opportunity to win a signed Kylie Ray poster. There'll be five. A signed Kirby poster. There'll be five of those, and a signed Mustafa Ali poster. And then the other item is 8.5 skate deck signed by the entire freelance locker room.
Cool.
That's just going to be one, and it's going to be a very special one. So that's one that you might want to win. And, if you're like me and like all that signed stuff that Charlie does not like, that would be a cool item to have in your collection. So $5 tickets, raffle tickets, all proceeds go to Kirby. So hopefully, the wrestling community comes, together again in support of Kirby. So,
Yeah,
wishing all the best, and we'll definitely be making a Two Heels and a Face donation his way, as
definitely.
he's meant a lot for the wrestling community.
Absolutely. Man, the guy can't catch a break. And all we can do is support him in this time and his
Yeah,
family. So just continue, just pile on the support. Any little bit helps. And we're thinking about you, Kirby. So yeah, we'll just continue to be there for people as this podcast, I feel like, has always done. I'm very proud of that. I stand by the content and the good vibes and the positive vibes we put out. Um, and despite some over the years, people have said like we've tried to like talk shit or like put a negative light on anything. I really don't think that's ever been in our intention, and we'll continue to just try and uplift people around us. That's what we do, Chris. And I don't want to pat on the back for that. I'm just saying I'm proud of that between us.
absolutely. Um, and yeah, that brings us to the conclusion of this episode. I think we've said our piece, and this is kind of going to be um, kind of like our path going into 2025 and the things we want to do. And like Charlie said, thanks for the support. From not just promotions that have been willing to jump on the pod, wrestlers. We've had friends, fans, people on here to share the love of wrestling, and we open up with that question, right? What is it that you love about wrestling? Because I think that's
Yeah.
what brings us all together.
Yeah. Well said, man.
But make sure you go to twoheelsandaface.com to check out the top Shy 25 list. Um, and let us know your thoughts. Share your thoughts, share the article, share this pod, and we'll see you next time.
Yep. Thank you.
Thanks.